Hi friends, welcome back to Calm in the Chaos Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Davine and I homeschool 4 kids ages 11, 12, and 15. We are on our third year of homeschooling. However, I was homeschooled growing up, though it was a very different situation being homeschooled back in the basically 80s and 90s. But today I wanted to go through some questions that I got on Facebook about homeschooling. People who have not started homeschooling or have just started homeschooling, they went and asked me some questions that they have about homeschooling. So if you are new to homeschooling, you are considering homeschooling, you are researching homeschooling, you just started homeschooling, this video is going to be a good one for you. It's going to have questions that people in the same situation as you are have asked me, and I'm going to do my best to answer them the best I can. Now, I might not be able to answer all of these questions fully in a video like this. Some are probably going to need a full-length video to answer. I will make those full-length videos to answer those questions. I am starting a series for new homeschoolers or people considering homeschooling right now. So if you would like to follow along, I would love for you to subscribe and like this video so that when my future videos come up, you are notified. So I'm going to be making a whole series on how to start homeschooling, more step-by-step, more description in each step. But I'm going to start off with answering some questions that you guys have for me on Facebook. Now I'm going to put my computer on my lap, so I might be looking down once in a while. So forgive me if that happens. Okay, so the first question I have here is, how do you manage with multiple kids? I have a first grader that I'm considering using videos to help me teach the lessons because I have 3 other kids who will all be 3 and under. One of those kids has some sensory needs that requires me to be a little extra attentive to him as I implement his therapy. The oldest is currently in private school for kindergarten. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that because, like I said, my kids are currently in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and we started homeschooling 3.5 years ago, so they were in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at that time. So I have never homeschooled kids who were starting to homeschool while having younger kids. So all I can tell you is what I've learned from other homeschool parents, from watching many homeschool videos myself. I can share what I've learned from them, and then I can maybe direct you to some other channels that might have better information as far as that goes. Now, if you have older kids like I do, 2nd grade and up, and you have multiple kids, I do have 4. I jumped in homeschooling 4, so there are some strategies that you need when you are homeschooling multiple children. I will link that video below if that is your situation, so you can kind of see what it looks like, or some tips for homeschooling multiple children when they're older. So for homeschooling kids with multiple kids when they are younger, it's not going to be super easy. I can hear from your situation. You have 3 kids under 3. That is a lot. You have a child with some special needs and therapies. That's a lot. However, the good thing is your child who is in kindergarten does not need a lot of school. They do not need to be doing school for 3 hours a day. Really, in kindergarten, if you have even like you spread it out throughout the day, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, really honestly, 20 minutes, that is probably enough for a kindergartner. So do you have a possible time when you can sit down with your child and focus on, there are really only a few things you need to focus on at that age. Could you be reading to that child at some point? Could you read to the child for 10 minutes a day? When could you read to that child for 10 minutes a day? Is there a time when his siblings are in bed and you can just read at night? Or can dad read to that child at night? Can you read to all of your children, just some picture books during the day? And would they be relatively happy with that? So that's one thing you could do. Next, you just really need to focus on, at this point, learning to read and some basic math skills. So do you have, even like at kindergarten levels, they're not going to be able to sit for long periods of time. Do you have 10 minutes that you can go over a new sound with your child, do some hands-on activities with them, covering a new sound, a new letter, and then have some worksheets for them to complete? It won't take long. So I would say 20 minutes of working on that with your child sometime throughout the day. So is there a time when your kids are taking naps? Maybe that's different times, different parts of the day. Maybe you can turn on something that the kids will enjoy watching while you take your child into the other room for 20 minutes. You just have to be creative, but you don't need a lot of time to homeschool a kindergartner. Then, same thing with math and counting. Can we do some counting as you're playing with your siblings? Can you get 10 minutes for them to do some addition problems? Can they do a few little worksheets while you're watching the other kids? So at this point, you don't need a lot of time to be teaching your kindergartner. Your kindergartner is going to be learning from their environment all the time. And I mean, there are some educational things you could, I'm not saying you should have them watching TV all the time, but there are things that, especially in kindergarten, they can be learning through watching things on TV. So while you're doing physical therapy, maybe with one of their siblings, they can watch something educational on the TV. So like Leapfrog, my kids really enjoyed that. Tons of homeschooling parents talk about the Leapfrog phonics DVDs. Those are great. I'm sure there's tons more. So really at this age, you don't have to do 2-3 hours of school with them. Do you ever get to go outside? I know it might be hard with little kids, but can you go outside? Can you look at things in nature? Can you observe what's going around you? Can you just talk about maybe things that you see in the environment? Talk about, so that's like science, and like reading books, a little bit of time working on developing, knowing their letters and sounds and things like that, and then basic math skills, really all you need at this point. And each year is going to be different. Each year your kids are going to be in different stages and levels, and you're just going to have to adjust as you go. But that is my best advice for you as far as the situation you talked about here. Now, I have a friend, her name is Shauna. Her channel is Homegrown Homeschool. She has currently a toddler. She just had a baby, and then she has a 6-year-old or 6 or 7-year-old at this point, and maybe a 9-year-old. So she probably has videos that would be more helpful as far as having littler kids that you have to deal with while teaching older kids. I will link her channel below. All right, so the next question here is where to start. Once registration is done, step by step, what to do. Have easy to understand list of minimum expectations for the AP. So I'm not exactly sure what the AP is. That could be some local lingo as far as homeschooling laws. But I think this person is asking for my How to Start Homeschooling series. So like I said, I'm going to be working on that step by step, what to do. So once registration is done, I'm assuming that is like letting the government or the school district know that you are going to homeschool. What should you do? Okay, so this is basically the outline of what I would say to do when you're starting homeschooling. So first of all, you decided you want to homeschool. If your kids are in school, you would have to officially withdraw them. You need to know your state laws. So whether you need to let your school district know or whatever that is, you need to know your state laws. How to know your state laws? I would Google your state name, homeschool laws or homeschool organization, and see if there is a specific organization for your state. I think most states have one. We have one here. I live in Washington, so we have the Washington Homeschool Organization, and they are the ones that I go to for any questions that I have about Washington homeschool laws. Lots of people mention HSLDA. That is a firm, so a bunch of lawyers that know the homeschool law in the states, US. So they often have some basic breakdowns of different state laws. I don't know if they're always 1,000% up to date, so I would always check in with your current state law, but that's a good place to start to find out your homeschool laws, and then you just need to follow whatever that says. I can't really make a video on those specifically because each state is so different, but join some Facebook groups, ask questions, always weigh the answers that you get from other people against the laws, and just make sure that they are interpreting the law in a reasonable way. I would say join some local Facebook groups, ask some questions in there, and then try to find your state homeschool organization and see what the laws are. After you're done that, I would say you need to start thinking about what you want homeschool to look like. So what do you imagine it looks like? What do you want it to look like? I would say watch some videos of other homeschool families, see all the different ways people homeschool. There's so many different ways. How do you think, what do you imagine your homeschool to be like? Once you know that your homeschool is not always going to be the fairy tale that you imagined. However, you want to start very slowly with homeschooling. You don't want to suddenly go get a whole bunch of curriculum and then just demand that your children do all these curriculum and just start weighing them down. You're going to start slowly. So if you have 1 or 2 or 3 children, just start with a time that you are together. Maybe you're reading to them. Let them deschool a little bit. So you might want to look up what deschooling is. I have a whole video on that. I'll link that below on what is deschooling. But it's some time for your children to just be out of the public school and just be home and learn to be home again. Because they have been, if they were in public school, they were rushing off to school every day. They probably did not have a lot of free time. They're going to have to get used to having some free time. What do they like to do in their free time? What are things that excite them and motivate them? You are going to start studying your children, and you're going to start looking and seeing and trying to learn about what are their interests. How do you think that they're going to learn best? And once you have a really good idea of your children and have a good idea of how they might learn best, that's when you're going to want to start looking at curriculum. Because if you just go out and you research best whatever curriculum, you're not going to get a curriculum that's going to fit your family. You might get one that is academically rigorous. That might cause a lot of tears and frustration for your family. It might not work for you as a teacher. It might not work for your children's personalities and the way they are. So you really want to study your children before you start picking your curriculum. And then once you start picking your curriculum, and you can do that by researching, trying to just come up with an idea of what you want your homeschool to look like, and then looking for curriculums that fit that idea or style. I also have a video on homeschooling styles, so I'll link that below as well. That might help you narrow down some curriculums because there's different curriculums for different styles. And I have a whole series of that as well. But once you kind of know your style, then you can start doing more specific research into your curriculum, and you want to build that slowly. I would first start with just some math, and you could just, while you're deschooling, while you're trying to figure things out, you could just get a little bit of math and a little bit of language arts, have your kids read every day, have your kids do a little bit of language arts every day. You could just get a little workbook from Costco or a teacher store or Barnes and Noble, I don't know, wherever, Amazon. Just get a little booklet, but don't get them started on a lot of work at that time. Just let them have time to be free and explore and just kind of learn your children and how they learn best. Then start filling in the curriculum. So start with a math and a language arts. So maybe you'll do some research on math and you'll say, I think my child would do best with this kind of math curriculum. And then you try it out, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But every year where you're trying something out, you're going to learn more and more about you as a teacher. You're going to learn more and more about your child. And every year it's going to be easier and easier to pick curriculum, whether you're going to just continue with what you picked or you're going to change it up, and you'll know why you're changing it and you'll know what you're looking for better and better each year. So don't expect to go out there and pick an all-in-one curriculum and it's going to work for your child and your family for the rest of your homeschooling days. I think that is a very rare occurrence. I'm sure it happens for some families, but I think it's a very rare occurrence to just pick a curriculum and stick with it all through. It is a trial and error testing, and every year you're just going to make some little tweaks and changes here and there. And the longer you take to watch and observe your children and then go and make those first purchases, the less likely each of those purchases is going to be something that is not going to work for your child. So look for a math, look for a language arts curriculum, and get started with those very gently. Just start with those. And then as you get comfortable with those and you get to know those curriculums and you know what you like and you don't like, and you're learning more about your children, about yourself, then you can start looking for like a history curriculum or a social studies or science and things like that. So build slowly. Don't just go all in. And maybe you do want to get an all-in-one curriculum. That's fine as well. But you might not want to start everything all at once. Just don't give your child too much culture shock when it comes to starting homeschooling. Yeah, so I think that is, like I said, I'm going to make a whole series on this, and I'll cover the steps a little more thoroughly and maybe have a few more steps in there, but hope that helps a little bit with how to get started. Okay, so here it says, are there resources for ASD as well? He is 4. All right, so For those who don't know, who are watching this, ASD is autism spectrum disorder. And I'm going to say that every child is different, right? Even if they do have autism or are autistic. I personally have a son who has autism as well, and he's just his own individual self. The good thing about homeschooling nowadays, there is huge variety of curriculum options. So I'm not going to say that there's like a specific curriculum that will work for your child because he's autistic or he has ASD. However, there are going to be curriculums that fit better just to your child, period. My son has been able to do most of the same curriculums as my child who has ADHD, who is very similar in age to him. We might have some different struggles towards the beginning where he was a bit resistant to work, but now at this point he's 11 and he gets his work done very easily and well because it's become a habit. So it's more for him, it was more of a struggle of developing that habit and knowing the expectations and knowing that he has to complete this work in order to do the thing that he would rather do. So it took some time, but he's able to do the same work as my other child. And so I'm not going to say that there's a specific curriculum for ASD because there's just such a range, right? So there is quite a variety of homeschooling curriculum, and I do believe that you will be able to find a great curriculum for your child who is for what is he interested in. You don't have to do a lot when you're homeschooling a 4-year-old. What is he interested in? Just do that with him. Does he like to be read to, or would he rather be outside? Just follow his passions at this point. I'm assuming he has things he's really interested in. Go with that. At 4 years old, you don't have to start any formal education at this point. Just enjoy having time with him. If you want to get a preschool curriculum, do some research. Go with your gut when you're looking at the curriculum. Like, is this something my son would enjoy? Is this something my son would fight? At 4, you don't want to be fighting with your child about school. You want to just have time together and just learning him and just seeing what he's interested in and focusing on that. Okay, so the next question is, are my kids going to do okay with the pressure of college and social settings of college if I homeschool? Are my kids going to do okay working in a group when they're out in the workforce after homeschooling? Will they still develop strong relationships with friends, not seeing them every day? Just pulled my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old this summer. Those things are the things I really worry about. Okay, so those are a lot of questions. So let me see. First one, are my kids going to do okay with the pressure of college and the social settings of college if I homeschool? Okay, so this is also an individual child question. Your children already have certain personalities, certain ways that they are, and whether they go to public school or whether they homeschooled, they are already innately a certain way. So, for example, if you have a shy child who you homeschool, they will be a shy homeschooled child. If you have a shy child who goes to public school, they are going to be a shy public school child. If you have an outgoing child who goes to public school, they're going to be outgoing at public school and they're going to be outgoing at home as well. So they have innate personalities and characteristics already within them. So whether you homeschool them or not, whether they go public school or not, that doesn't really affect how they're going to do so much in college. So I'm going to say I was homeschooled and I went to college and I got a teaching degree, and I don't feel like me being homeschooled has affected me in any way as far as social situations, being able to work in a team and as a group. I mean, going to a school like a college or something, it was a different experience, but I was able to adapt. It wasn't like I couldn't adapt because I don't know how to learn with other kids. Now, if you homeschool, you often do classes. You do classes with other students. You're not always home. Maybe you take an art class. I took an art class. Or maybe your kid does one STEM class in the summer. Or maybe they do Taekwondo, so they're hanging out with kids there. Or as they get older and they're in high school and you don't want to teach them chemistry. So there's homeschool groups that have chemistry teachers who teach them chemistry. So just because your child is homeschooled, it doesn't mean that they will never be in a group situation. They will actually be in a lot of different situations that perhaps public school kids are not in. They're going to have opportunities to be much more self-motivated, to be able to set their own schedule, to learn to manage their time because they have that opportunities. So there are benefits of homeschooling that you might not see before you take them out. And I don't feel like it's going to hinder your child's ability to do well in college because you're going to give them opportunities. And if you feel like your child needs more work in that area, then you will find some classes on the side to help them with that. So you as a parent, you're not teaching every single thing all the time. You as the parent are the facilitator of their education. You do a lot of things with your child at home, but as you get to know them and as you get to see what strengths and weaknesses they have, you're able to help them be in situations where they can grow in those areas that they might struggle in. Okay, so are my kids going to do okay working in a group when they're out in the workforce after homeschooling? So I think I just answered that. I was homeschooled up through 11th grade, and I would say my employers really liked me a lot because I was a very responsible employee. But that's personality too. There's always personality that comes into play. I had no issue working with other people. I didn't have a problem working in group settings at university and stuff like that. So I think that answers that. Will they still develop strong relationship with friends not seeing them every day? Okay, so this one is something that you as the parent have to be very intentional about. There is a possibility that if you do not intentionally help your child to find situations to make friends, that they will not make friends because they are not in school every day. Now, they might not be with friends in school every day that you would like them to have anyway. So there's that to consider. As a homeschool parent, you get to be in charge of a lot of their social stuff in the early years. So, for example, we have a homeschool group where me and a few of my friends, we all homeschool our kids. So we get together once a week and our kids all hang out together. They're very close friends with them. We do attend a church. So they have friends who are in youth group and they go to 2 youth groups. So they have friends in that youth group and they have friends in another youth group. We also go to some classes at the public schools. It's a different program. So there's kids who go to the classes and they have friends that used to go to public school with that are now in these classes as well. So there's friends like that. So we arrange play dates. Sometimes we had like trampoline passes and we would meet with a certain group of people weekly for a while there. If it's nice out, we might say, hey, we're going to the park. Who wants to hang out? My girls are in dance class, so they have friends at dance. My boys are at Taekwondo, so they have friends at Taekwondo. So we are intentional as homeschool parents to help our children get as much social as they need. Different kids need different amounts of socialization. They will still have friends as homeschooled kids, providing that you allow them opportunities to go and make friends. And you as the parent might have to put a little more effort into creating opportunities for your kids to regularly get outside with other people. I would say that is very important when you start homeschooling. You need to be intentionally looking for some groups, some people to hang out with who are homeschooled, so your kids can see that they are not the only ones in the world who are homeschooling and start to make some homeschool friends, because it is going to be a little bit harder to continue relationship with some of their public school friends. Not impossible if their parents are willing to plan things with you. It's not impossible to keep those friends. However, it's going to be a lot easier to develop some friendships with other homeschooled kids because the schedule is just much more flexible. And you can say, okay, every Friday morning, we're going to meet together and do this and have a group hang out together. So is not silly to be worried about that, because it is something that you will have to take time and make sure as a parent you are facilitating. All right, so this video is getting quite long, so I'm going to pause here and call this part 1 of questions and answers for new and beginning homeschoolers. If you would like to see part 2, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Stick around for my future videos about how to start homeschooling. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer them in the comment section below. So feel free to ask more questions down there. And if you are a subscriber of mine who has been following me a long time and homeschooling a long time, I would love for you to help me answer these questions. Thank you so much for watching this today, and I hope to see you all in part 2. Bye, everyone.